Let's dive into a little bit of musical theology and
Sure.
kind of blow some people's minds a little bit with it. You know, being theologically sound, how does your music from Igniting the Sky, which is hard, heavy, and oftentimes brutal,
Mm,
how is that compatible with sound theology? How can you explain that to grandma whose socks are blown off when she hears your music?
right. Because Jesus is Lord over how sound waves work. He's Lord over how the key of A works, and he is Lord over how 12AX7 preamp tubes get clipping. Right. So Jesus invented the human intellect, how the 4/4 time signature is put together, or 6/8 for those of you who want to get a little weird. But he's Lord over everything, which includes, you know, beats, syncopated rhythms, guitar pickups, all of that. And so how we put all of that together is either glorifying or not glorifying. And I would say yes, there is such a thing as sinful music styles, mainly atonal music, because it's really just postmodern deconstructionism applied to music. It's another discussion. But in terms of heavier music, metal or hardcore or what have you, it is simply stylistically different than what some people are used to. And what's the content? What's the intent? Is it glorifying to God or not? And so in that, can I get spicy?
Absolutely.
All right, let me stretch.
Here we go.
My theory about not just the existence of metal, or Christian metal rather, but metal in general, is at least in part because the church abandoned singing psalms and abandoned singing the imprecatory psalms of, I actually printed out notes. I don't do
That's
this.
a pretty big word. Can you define
Yeah.
imprecatory for us?
So calling on God to dispense with his judgment on evil, right? And not just Satan and sin in general, but particularly God's enemies. And when you think about it, God will kill all of his enemies one way or another.
Yep.
Right? They're either crucified with Christ and it's no longer them who live, but Christ within them, or he smites them in judgment. Right? So God will kill all of his enemies one way or another. It's either grace or wrath.
Right.
But for instance, Psalm 58, "O God, shatter their teeth in their mouth. Break out the fangs of the young lions, O Lord. Let them flow away like water that runs off. When he aims his arrows, let them be as headless shafts. Let them be as a snail, which melts away as it goes along, like the miscarriage of a woman which never sees the sun." That's heavy.
That is heavy. That is not your precious moments memory verse.
Yeah, it is not. It's not your typical worship song of cotton candy and unicorns and rainbows. I had this hard time and it's going to be okay. Jesus has me. Yes, that's true, but the Holy Spirit inspired those words to be written for
Yes.
God's people to sing. So
Yes.
how do we sing them well? And I won't get into the entire theological spiel about over the last 120 plus years, but the short of it is we abandoned all of the full counsel of God within what he's given us to sing, and that those emotions have to come out somewhere.
They do.
They have to. Yeah, and so that's one thing that I'm thankful for with our church is our music minister has been putting psalms to music every month. We've had a new psalm this year, and we're recording them. So that'll be another conversation. But we're getting back to singing the psalms in our church, and it is glorious. Like even our pastor said, it's like getting into the deep end of the pool, and it's just more fun there. So
yeah.
that's my spiel on
100% with what you're saying there.
Yes.
And I'm getting excited as you're saying it because, you know, I spent 13 years of my life priding myself in that I did not listen to any secular music whatsoever, preached against metal, preached against rock, wrote against it. And then after God healed me from a brain tumor, had a wake up call about it all. And that's why we're here doing this. And this morning before I left for work. I was like, I really kind of want to dive in this some more. I actually wrote a book about how God uses heavy metal. And some of those points that you've talked about are in that book. I'll put a link below and a link below also in the description for your podcast as well, because I think it's worth listening to. I went to this book of Psalms. I mean, if you're going to find out about music, go to the book that's about music. And I went to Psalm 81 verse 1, where it says, "Sing aloud unto God our strength." And I was like, okay, let's do a theological dive here, a deep dive. What does this word "aloud" mean? So I looked it up in Hebrew. The Hebrew word for "aloud" is ronan, and it is defined as, well, it literally means to creak, to make a harsh, shrill, and grating sound. And it's very similar to another word that you find in the Greek, krazo, which means to croak like a raven, hence Raven's Heart. And my co-host, Poe, who likes to croak like a raven. He's there. He got all excited about that.
Yeah.
So there you have it. And I know a lot of people and I struggled with this for a while too, the distorted vocals, until I started writing the book, Stones That Cry God's Precious Metal, and discovered that John the Baptist sounded more like a distorted vocalist than he did the sweet preacher in a pulpit preaching about what you said, candy, cotton candy and unicorns. So there it is. I mean, and that is pleasing to God's ear.
Yeah, absolutely. And so there's something to be said for the fact that Christianity and Christendom, if you will, is responsible for both the great cathedrals that we see and Handel's Messiah, which, we're coming up on the time of year to go listen to that. And I listen to it at least once every Christmas season because it's just glorious. But Christianity also makes, when it's applied correctly, it makes better metal. It makes better rock and roll because Jesus is Lord over all of that, right?
Yes.
And so that, I think there's a good challenge to be had to Christians who make music to not only reside in this is going to sound terrible. We don't just sing about salvation, right? Or don't just sing about struggles. Sing about everything. For instance, I just pulled this up. And secular band Lorna Shore just put out a new album, and they have a song called "Prison of Flesh." And Will Ramos wrote the lyrics thinking about from his grandmother's perspective when she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Well, I don't know of any Christian songs that will even touch that. You'd have to get into the heavier genres. But when he says things like, and obviously I can't endorse everything that he says, but replace my insides, a hollow body vacant of all but fear. That can really resonate with somebody.
Yeah.
Like as someone who thinks a lot, dementia, Alzheimer's does not sound appealing to me in the slightest, right? And so that really resonates with me, and I think it would resonate with a lot of other people. Now, bands like Reformed, who I think of as a Christian periphery, they have a song called "Smoke of Their Torment," which is exactly what you think it's about, and I think they do a great job. Bloodlines does a great job, Convictions, etc. Like, there's plenty of good Christian bands. And I think we need to learn from them and then just keep pushing the envelope and assume the center.